All right, ladies and gentlemen. So now we're gonna follow up that amazing panel with some dynamite people that we have the honor of speaking to. So first, I want to try to give these people a rundown if you're not familiar with everybody. So Roger Mason Jr., former NBA player, former NBA Player Association president, and now is a superstar in the entrepreneur space. Our good friend, Andre Dre Lyon.
You heard the pat.
Lyon.
Wait. You heard the patois?
You did.
Lyon.
You know it?
You done know.
You done know.
Big up team.
One of the greatest hip hop producers of all time, but is transitioning into entrepreneur space, into the tech space. He's going to talk about it, but he's actually working on a platform that's going to revolutionize music. So give it up for Dre, from Cool and Dre.
This is
And Megan Holston-Alexander, superstar in venture capital. She is the head of the A16Z Cultural Leadership Fund, which we have the honor of being LPs in, and just a very bright mind and a very great person. So thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate it. So Dre, let's start this out. So we just got finished listening to two of the greatest to ever do it, hip hop pioneers, and they've built the foundation of hip hop 50 years, and it's become $1 trillion industry, right? But I'm not even gonna waste any time. You know, we've had the honor of speaking with a few gentlemen, your friends, our friends, Timbaland, Irv Gotti, and they both sold their catalogs, and that's something that's very popular. And we're in this financial space, and a lot of hedge funds, a lot of equity firms are buying music catalogs. Crypto's down, stock is down. You can't really get returns anywhere, so they go into artists. Lil Wayne sold his catalog, a bunch of artists selling their catalogs. You are not a fan of selling catalogs. Why not?
No. First of all, I want to thank Fat Joe and Dougie Fresh for coming out. You know what I'm saying? This is unbelievable. Last year was my last year here in Davos. I met Lori with Lobis. We had a conversation about artists retaining, their work, retaining their creation, and we just kicked it off. And I let her know, I was like, Davos needs some culture, man. You know what I'm saying? So we started working on things together, and we felt like, the 50 years of hip hop was a perfect time to bring culture to Davos. So I'm very, very proud to see a room full of people with these amazing icons. So please give it up again for Fat Joe and Dougie Fresh. So, I'm not mad at the artists that's selling their publishing right now, because that's the only option, right? But artists should not be in a position to divorce themselves from their cultural asset. It's not fair. We should be able to leverage it. If you buy a house, they always say a house is one of the greatest investments you can make. And if you live in a house and you want to do some upgrades, there's an opportunity for you to pull some money out that house, fix the house, and then the value of your house increases, right? It's a great investment. Well, we're creating a product that's changing the world every day, whether it's through music, whether it's through product, whether it's through fashion. And we believe that you should have the opportunity to, leverage that. So what Lobis and I have done is create a fund where artists can now put that asset in a fund for a smaller multiple, but share in everything that's in that fund. So if there's catalogs, if there's art, if there's a Basquiat, if there's Broadway plays, the kids on Broadway, they're not getting their just due, right? Dougie Fresh talked about the arts program being cut in schools. That's the first thing they cut. So we just want to create an opportunity for artists to create generational wealth. That's what we're here for. You know what I'm saying? I'm a little overcome by the moment right now, but you know what I'm saying? Nah, it's just, you know what I'm saying? We work so hard.
How do I invest?
You know what I'm saying?
We're getting there. Joe, we're getting there. Joe, we're getting there.
You know what I mean?
I want to invest.
So that's it.
Where do I invest?
So what we're doing is creating a fund that artists could put their intellectual property in it, share in everything that's in the fund, and create generational wealth. And that's what we're here to do. And we're here to take over Davos and change the complexion of this place.
Love it. So let's stay right there. So Megan, I want to come to you because we talked about diversity, and Dre, you just said we want to change the complexion of Davos, and I'm looking around the room, and this is where it starts. But Megan, I want to talk about why it's so important that we do it here in Davos, and kind of the role that CLF is playing in making sure that this conversation doesn't only start, but we actually see action that goes behind it.
Yep. Absolutely. So I think there are a lot of conversations across the world about what generational wealth looks like, but it's not often that you see people actually putting action behind it. So CLF actually started, one of the founders of our firm, Ben Horowitz, is a huge hip hop fan. And one of the things he started to notice was exactly what you talked about, Dougie Fresh, is that the people who moved the culture forward, not even moved it forward, created it and then moved it forward, were not getting to take part in all of the economic creation that it had. So Ben said, what resources do I have to bring to bear? What can I use that I have access to and I have control of that can help the people who are creating culture and pushing it forward now share in that economic wealth? And that is two things. It's capital and technology. Andreessen Horowitz is a firm that is an early stage tech investor, and technology has been the largest creator of wealth in the last 20 years. That's because we invest really early for pennies on the dollar, and then by the time it makes it public, it's selling for $40 or $50. So those multiples are really, really great. So how do we bring in our legends, our current cultural creators, like Earn Your Leisure, and allow them to invest so they can create economic wealth for themselves? So we really try to focus on that, and so far it's been really, really successful. The other thing that we really try to do is bring more young African Americans into tech in general. There's a number of avenues that you can come in. It's not just one way. There's room for everybody, and we just want that to be known. So I'm evangelizing it from the mountaintops, literally, that technology has played a huge part in getting culture to the masses, things going viral, social media, Black Twitter, Black TikTok, all the dances, all the clothes people want to wear, all the music that they listen to. And so that marriage has been really important, and the cultural side should be benefiting.
Yes. Roger Mason Jr., I want to talk about your entrepreneurship, but before, if we could talk about the NBA for a minute. So you spent a lot of time, your whole life, playing basketball in NBA and then in NBA leadership position. So, the money that's being generated with professional sports is crazy. We were talking to Kyrie Irving a while ago, and he was saying that you're going to start seeing $200 million contracts soon. And when you're talking about $200 million, like, that's a different level of wealth. So
can I play basketball?
Actually, 300 million. 300. Yeah, and before you know, it'll be 4. First of all, thanks Forbes, Randall, for having me today to be with these great women and men, and Joe, obviously, and Doug. Great job. As far as the NBA, it's been incredible to see the growth. When I first came in the league, it was a very different dynamic. We owned 57%. The owners owned 43%. I was a part of the negotiating where we made it 50-50. And the players lost a lot of money in that, right? So how do we keep our value, like Joe and Doug was talking about, but make it a win-win for both? And so as the TV deals have gone up, as the money's gone up, the contracts have gone to the moon. I mean, I think after this next CBA, there's a new media deal. They're saying contracts can go north of $300 million. Players may make $1 billion playing basketball in the next 10 years, which is staggering, right? So when you talk about generational wealth, you talk about, what players do with that money. That's what my passion was at the Players Association, helping guys with their transition, getting smart people in the room. We actually did a tech symposium with Jeff Jordan and Ben Horowitz from A16, right? Because players had all this capital, now what do we do with it, right? We know the horror stories, we grew up seeing it.
Invested with the cultural leadership part.
Yeah, no, but it's about being in the right rooms with the right people. And so one thing I do want to say, to Dougie's point, right, when we had that new TV deal, we were making around $900 million in TV rights. We jumped to $2.7 billion, right? And so all this money came in, but it was on the backs of the Oscar Robinsons and all the guys that came before us that they had bad knees, they had, ailments, and they couldn't do anything. So Michelle Roberts, who was the executive director at the time, we came with an idea. We said, look, what better way to say thank you to the players that came before us than to do healthcare for all players? So She told me to write a white paper on it. I had this idea, and I'm like, well, at the time, I didn't know what a white paper was. But I told her I got it, I'm gonna do it. And so we did the white paper, we got it ratified, the NBA wanted to join, and so now, if you played 3 years or more, you got health care for life, right? If you played 10 years or more, you and all your dependents are covered for life, right? And that gets paid for by the players, and that, to your point, Doug, that was a thank you for helping get the game to where it is. So to your original question, the generational wealth, I mean, the opportunity is there with these new contracts. Now with technology, now with players being smarter, with funds like the Cultural Fund and others, like your fund, like I want to hear about your fund because the players need to be investing in that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the things that we're doing with the fund right now is to make sure we take care of the younger artists, that way they don't get scammed. But we also want to set up the fund that way our legends, like, you know, what Dougie Fresh was talking about, can participate. You know what I'm saying? There's no health care for rappers at all, for artists, period. You know what I'm saying? At all. And, you know, we generate too much money for the world to not be able to take care of our guys.
We should talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Megan, I want to talk to you for a sec because when we talk about generational wealth, when we think about what has generated the most money over the past 30 years, it's been technology. And so can you speak to the importance of us not only understanding and applying, but actually creating, right? Because I remember, you know, being in education, it was like coding was a thing, coding wasn't a thing, and now AI seems to be the thing, Web3 needs to be the thing, but where are we learning it, right? Can you talk about the importance of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, technology, we use it all day, every day. In our phones and these microphones and these lights and all of the apps that we're using. So all of the ways that we can contribute are incredibly important, whether it's as a developer, right? You're actually creating it, whether it's as like a head of product at a company, whether you're the entrepreneur and it was your idea, whether you're the investor. And so our goal, particularly at CLF, is like, how do we put Black people first in all of it, right? We want more Black entrepreneurs, which we support through our TXO fund. We want more Black equity, which we do through CLF. We want more Black developers, which we support through our nonprofit program. We fund kind of millions of dollars towards teaching folks how to code, teaching people about design, et cetera. So we want to put us in line first for everything, and it's in due time. So it's just mission critical because I have seen, we've all heard about it, X company IPOs, the founder gets super rich, so we want more entrepreneurs. First employees get super rich, so we want more early employees, employ 5, 10, 15, 20, because that is generational wealth. It's an amount of money that a lot of people haven't seen that now that they can go put it back into the market, right? Now you can self-fund your startup. Now you can angel invest, and that's kind of how we keep it going. So we think if we put Black people, in particular, first in line into all of those tracks, that we're setting ourselves up for success.
So Dre, let me ask you this: hip hop, right? $billion industry. We just talking about athletes making upwards of $500 million for a contract. But when you look at hip hop, it's dominated by Black people, but we don't have any ownership. So at what point do we get to the point where we can actually own a record label? Not a boutique record label, no disrespect, but major distribution. Because it's like we're in Davos. And this is an economic forum, so it's like at some point we have to control our economic power, and that's hip hop music. So in your opinion, how do we get past being artists and really have real equity and real ownership in the situation?
I mean, I think this is the first step. You know, this is the first hip hop celebration in Davos ever, right? And it's about putting the creators in front of the investors. Mm-hmm. You know, they make us talk to the A&R first. Then we get to talk to the executive vice president at A&R. Then we get to talk to the vice president. Then we get to talk to the president. And maybe we get to the CEO. But all these people are depending on an investor to invest in the actual record company. And they use us to own market share. So Davos is a place where all of the investors are at. And the creators need to have a direct line to the investor. And that's how we, you know what I'm saying? That's how we change it.
Good.
And I'll just add that, like, that goes across industries. That's in music, that's in tech. having a direct connection to the investor, having a direct connection to the startup, because the middleman stuff gets real messy.
Nah, we don't
It
want
gets
the
real
middleman.
messy.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, we don't want the middleman. I met 3 guys last year that all own banks, and they told me, do not sell your catalog. There's a Web3 technology, and it's gonna explode. Call me, and we could leverage your catalog. And I was like, I can't be the only one having this conversation. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're doing here, you know?
Yeah, shout out to you, Dre, because number one, and we had this conversation last night, it's one thing to get information, but it's also a thing to share the information.
We gotta share it.
We
you know
have
what I'm
to
saying?
share it, right?
We gotta share it. And you know what? I'm gonna keep it real with you. My brother Fat Joe, he discovered Cool and Dre, right? No, hold on.
Okay, generational wealth. So if we did an ancestry.com, chances are my family was poor for 400 years before I came along. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about changing the dynamic for the future families to come and our future relatives and our community in the future. Generational wealth is a very important word, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get our just due. I'm sorry.
No, that's 100%.
Shout out to Joe.
And what Joe's talking about is the conversation has been happening for like the last 2-3 years, and tech has a lot to do with that. You know, that phone, that iPhone is creating millionaires with kids that are 12, 13, 14. Kids right now are on Twitch making $1 million a month playing video games. When I was a kid, I got in trouble for playing too much video games.
Yeah.
Right? So tech is so huge, and generational wealth is great, and the discussion is great, and the idea is great. It's time to put it in action. You know, I learned through my partners here, Lori and Sarah, they taught me the game. They said, this is how you create generational wealth. This is how it's been done for hundreds of years. Let's give the creators an opportunity to participate.
And the thing about generational wealth that we say the phrase all the time, but what generational wealth means is like being in a position to do for others. Generational means I want to have it and I want to give it to the next person and the next person, or I want to give it to my community. Yep. And if you have that communal mindset,
exactly,
it's very difficult not to be successful because we can go so far together.
We could put it in practice. Me and Cool, we met Fat Joe 20 years ago, and we were doing good. We were selling beats locally to all the drug dealers, and they was giving us $700 a beat, $1,000 a beat. We met Fat Joe, and he took us to New York and said, how much you charging for beats? And we was like, man, $1,000. Nah, fuck that. You're getting $15,000. And it changed our lives because he gave us an opportunity. We need to do what he was doing for us on a mass scale, and tech allows us to do that. So this fund that we're creating, we're gonna tokenize it so we can have a real world asset of value on it, and it's gonna be great. You know what I'm saying? I'm super excited.
Yeah, shout out to y'all. That iPhone helped 2 young men create a company.
That's right.
That would change the world. It would one day have them talking about generational wealth in Davos. So shout out to the iPhone. Yeah, we talked about generational wealth, and I want to close with this, Roger, because I'm gonna come to you. But one of the things we don't talk about is sustainable wealth, right? Because it's one thing to get it, but how do we keep it? Right. And so when you're talking about NBA players accumulating $500 million deals, billion-dollar deals, how do we get them to be more receptive to this part of the world, to the investment community? Because I know that was one of the initiatives that you did when you created your fund.
100%. I think, and giving another shout out to hip hop, I think if you look at Jay-Z and how he changed the paradigm with looking at equity, I think the sports world really took a cue from that, right? You look at LeBron and his deal with Beats by Dre, right? He wasn't worried about the short term. So as you say, longevity, he wasn't worried. He was worried about, okay, I get some equity in this, what does the exit look like? And I think that was a defining moment for a lot of superstars in the NBA because they started looking at their own deals very differently. How do I get equity? And so over the last 6 years, it's been really great to see that. How does this generation change what happened in the past? I think technology, I think information, I think access to the direct investors so they can co-invest, so they know the deals, right? Because a lot of times, 10 years ago, by the time an athlete got a deal, you knew that was a deal that everybody else said no to. So why is an athlete going and investing in a restaurant or going and putting money into an asset that's depreciating, right? So I think technology has changed that. I think players are getting smarter. I think living in the Bay, Golden State Warriors, Iguodala, Steph Curry, those guys being around the circle in tech, I think has changed the paradigm of an NBA player. And I think you're going to see more and more guys. You know, John Morant said he has a goal to make $1 billion by 30.
No, that's crazy.
You know, like the goals are different now, right? It's not about how much you can spend on some jewelry. It's about how much equity can you get in this new deal.
No, that's a fact.
And I'll just say really quick, I love that you said that, because I think the paradigm is shifting, but it's still not that common. Like, so many people are not investing at all in anything, right? And so I think there's a lot. Half of my job, Judine knows, is, if not more than half, is educating people and entertainers and musicians and athletes, saying, like, there's more to this story. Like, for the most part, now these $300 million deals, but for the most part, like we talked about this last night, you can't get to $1 billion off of one thing.
Nope.
It's not gonna come from the music industry usually. It's usually not only gonna come from sports. We have to kind of put together a portfolio of things. And so I spend so much of my time doing that. And I think if we can kind of just continue to tell that story of, like, okay, how do we add something else and get through the distraction, quite frankly, of someone trying to pay you for something, and instead you say, I want that equity. No, I don't want a $500,000 check. I want 2%, right? That's a mindset shift. That's a mindset shift. So we're getting there. It's still a lot of work to do, though.
And then one last thing I want to add about hip hop and tech. You know, when they created the turntable, it was just for you to play records. But when we take something and we touch it, we make it different. We transform it. So with hip hop, they started scratching. We started sampling when we made beats. You look at the Clubhouse app, right? It was around for however long it was, right? The pandemic came and we had no way to communicate. So the culture, we jumped on Clubhouse and we created strip clubs in the Clubhouse app.
We did.
I spent $5,000 one night in the strip club. I don't even go to strip clubs, but I was in the strip club on Clubhouse. We have a way to take tech.
Make it rain.
Or versus, exactly. We have a way to take whatever tech creates and transform it. But we always do that as the consumer.
We need to own it.
Let's be in the meetings when we create the tech, right? All right, y'all, we taking up the time. You did.
Roger, before we finish, can you talk about Vaunt? Oh, it's over? Oh.
Yeah,
No, one more.
I spent 1 minute on Vaunt. So when I left the Players Association, we saw how much opportunity there were for athletes and entertainers outside of their normal gig, playing basketball during the season, music. So we started Vaunt to help creators give a platform to monetize their likeness, right? So Post Malone, for example, right? He's a guy that loves to play beer pong. So we created a game for him, a celebrity beer pong tournament, and we got 8 figures for that, right? And so that's something he would do for free that we turn into a business. NBA players in the summer, we have runs that fans never get to see, right? So what would happen if you made a platform that fans could actually see some of these battles, these one-on-one battles? So Vaunt has been built to create content, but IP that we own. And so moving forward, we're really excited about what we're building.
It's amazing.
Incredible.
Thank you to Forbes. Thank you to Dre.
Please, just wait real quick. We just talked about